Hi guys, my name is Jepster and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm a colorist in the Philippines. I'd like to welcome you to the second episode of DaVinci Resolve Color Grading 101. So for this episode, we're going to talk about the different color wheels in Resolve. So we were able to use these color wheels last week, but more of the way of using them for exposure and how to adjust the gain, the lift, and the gamma, and so on and so forth. But this week, we're going to dabble more on how to use it for actual color grading and correction. So we have two different kinds of color wheels in DaVinci Resolve. We have the primaries and the log. So guys, I won't delay you with any more of this introduction, and then let's get right to the meat of this episode on how to use the different color wheels in DaVinci Resolve. And here we go. So right now we're here, and let's go to our next clip. So we're going to touch base a little bit on how these wheels actually work. So if you haven't been to my previous video, I recommend you check it out. I'm going to put a link below. You could actually see probably a link coming out from the upper right of your video, and you could actually check that out. But for now, I could touch base on this by using this image. So for example, on how to read a waveform on your scopes is from left to right. So here we have our shadows to our highlights, so left to right. And it kind of looks like your curve right down here. But we're going to just use our primary wheels, and for that, and these are the differences between the primary wheels, which you could select from here, primaries, and our log wheels. So first off, primary wheels. Like explained before, these are push and pull. So you could actually pull just from the top using the gain, and then you could push it down, and everything gets affected. And for the gamma, it actually pushes and pulls from the middle and going down. So that's what the gamma does. Now for the lift, it actually starts from the left or from our shadows. You could pull it up and you could pull it down. Okay, so these are what the primary wheels does in terms of exposure. And now when it comes to log wheels, it's actually more of a pinch or a kind of pinch, or just selecting a certain area. For example, for the highlight wheel, you are just affecting the highlights. As you can see, our midtones and shadows are not affected when you play around with our highlight wheels. Before I continue, remember we have a reset button in case you make a mistake or reset our exposure to the default location. And now for our midtones, it actually just selects the midtones. So these are what the log profiles do. Like for this, just for the shadows. Now, in terms of color, this is how it would look like. So back to our primary wheels, when you go to the center of the wheel, you could actually add a bit of color. So for example, if you touch this, hold on to it, and you want to add a little bit of magenta to your highlights, up to your midtones, you could use the gain. As you can see, our blacks are not involved. Okay, and when you go to lift, it actually avoids the highlights. And for example, we need to add a teal. So it basically starts from the shadow up to the mids. Now for the gamma, it doesn't touch the highlights, but it actually just touches base in this area from the mid and then into the midtones. So this is what the gamma does when you want to add some color. It doesn't touch on the shadows or the blacks or even the whites. Okay, next we can now apply this for our log. So let's just reset everything. For our log, it actually just colors or polarizes that certain area. For example, if you want to add some orange highlights, it only affects the highlights. It doesn't even affect the whites that much, just a little bit. Now for the midtones, the same thing. There's not much, as you can see, it doesn't affect it that much. And for the shadow, it's the same thing. It's just the shadows from the blacks and to the shadows. The primaries, like I said, is push and pull. For the log, it's more of a pinch, so it's really just selective. It's more selective than the rest. So you may be asking what the offset does. The offset is more of displacing the curve from where it is. So we could actually displace it to a lower exposure or a higher exposure. But remember, we want to avoid any form of clipping. So for the offset, it actually colorizes the entire image from highlights into our shadows or our blacks. So this is what offset does. So the more you push into that color, the more affected it will be. Okay, so how do we apply that when we do color grading? So let's select one of our images from my library. So this was shot in Seoul, Korea. Okay, so now we want to apply these color wheels onto our color grading. So first off, we need to adjust the exposure of this image. It's a little bit overexposed, and we can lower that by lifting and bringing down our image, pulling it down using lift and making sure it touches the shadows. And we could actually bring down the gamma, our mids. It's a little bit too bright for my taste. And there we go. And then we could adjust the gain a bit and stretch it out a bit. And we could also stretch out the highlights a bit there. There we go. All right. Okay, so we now have a nicely exposed image. Now we are going to create a bit of color. So what if your client says, I want a warm sky and a little bit of a teal in the image. So what you could do is, since the sky is actually around here in the highlights, you could just add a bit of warmth in the highlights. Okay. And then we could actually add a bit more of a teal into the gamma, our mids. And there we go. Want a bit more of a really obvious warm highlight. All right, so now we have, we're able to do what the client wants. We'll have warm sky and have a little bit more of teal and below. Okay, so this is how these different wheels work. So if we want our shadows to be like more of a magenta feel to it, you could actually do that and make it look more vintage, like, you know, those old movies. And that's how it would look like. So if you want to see what it looks like before and after, so this is how you work with the color wheels. Okay guys, so I hope you learned a lot about the difference between using primary wheels and the log wheels. So for the primary wheels, it's more of a push and pull, and for the log wheels, it's more of a pinch. Now guys, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, if you have any questions, just send them below. And if you like this video, press the like button over there. And if you want to learn more about color grading and DaVinci Resolve, don't forget to subscribe. So for the next episode, we're going to talk about power windows and qualifiers and how powerful these tools are used for DaVinci Resolve and of course color grading. Hope to see you next week. If you want to be notified, just press the subscribe button and look for the bell, and you'll get a notification from YouTube that I've released this new episode. And I'll see you guys. My name's Jepster, colorist from the Philippines, and I'll see you again.